I retired on 31st August this year. Somebody who was close to me asked me, what was I going to do after my retirement? I told them, I'm going to be a misfit in private practice. Once you retire from government service, you have no more platform to work on in government service. But I have been in government service for too long. So any attempt to go and practice in a corporate hospital would be like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. So that's what I said. With all care and affection, if somebody wants me to work in a corporate hospital, I mean any friend of mine who is running a corporate hospital, then I would be a misfit. I knew that. World has moved on, costs have gone up. I still look at treating patients without charging money. It's not possible in corporate sector. That's when I thought about 4 or 5 months before my retirement what I could do. I thought I would start a second opinion clinic. That's why when she requested me to have whether I have any ideas, I thought well about it already. So that's what I told her. If I sit in a second opinion clinic, then I will not practice what I talk of. I'll give an opinion and be done with it. First thing is that. And when a patient comes, I told her that I would explain them what the problem is and then tell them what are the various options available. And if they ask me, okay, the next question is, okay, would you like to treat me? I said that me and if anybody is going to work with me, the first condition is we will not operate or we will not practice what we are saying. And we will also not tell them where to go. It's up to them. All that we would do is, without any fear or favor, say whether an opinion expressed by a colleague of ours is correct or not. And that's what we would limit ourselves to. That's what I told her. So this is what I wanted to do after retirement, but I have been asked to do some other job, so I am continuing to do with that job. But then to practice whatever I thought of, I couldn't put the whole team together. There I could only find a colleague or a friend or two, but not more than that. This requires people who are comfortable financially, like I am. Honestly, let me tell you, thanks to my wife, I am comfortable financially, so I don't have to earn money. So for me to ask somebody to sacrifice everything to, and come, it may not be possible, so I have to find a few like-minded people. But whether one or two, this is what I honestly wanted to do. So that's why I have told her that. But then, when you give a second opinion, is it that you suspect somebody, doctor? You suspect a person who has given an earlier opinion? This is a big dilemma. And it's a moral dilemma for a doctor as well. If you are giving an opinion which contradicts the original opinion, then it requires a lot of courage to say that. Because you invite the wrath of your own colleagues who say that, okay, I have given an opinion and this fellow thinks that he's smarter than me and he has given a different opinion. And I tell you, it's not so easy to express an opinion contradictory to what is popular. But then we have to understand that a lot of technology has come into medicine. Technology has helped medicine tremendously. It helped in better patient care, which we cannot. But then technology has pushed up the medical care, cost of medical care. It's become very expensive. When people establish hospitals with such kind of technology, then they are bound to charge. Then the whole attitude changes from service to profits, losses, loans, repayments. This is the language we hear in most of the hospitals. This is what makes life very difficult. So in order to make those payments, meet those commercial liabilities, you are bound to push people towards a care which we may not recommend in case the patient is not paying. That is one reason why I thought a second opinion is required. Now we know not only the technology, even medical education has become a costly business. You pay right from your kindergarten. For a kindergarten school, you pay for your primary education, secondary education, medical education, MBBS, post-radiation, super specialties, everywhere you pay. When I worked out what it costs for a person to become a super special, complete super specialty in this state, my most conservative estimate is that you have to pay nearly 10 crores when you take into account the interest that you pay for this. So when somebody invests 10 crores, they want to recover 10 crores. That may be very clear. Nobody invests 10 crores on their education to do charity alone. There may be people who are willing to do charity alone, but I don't think, that would be the sole motto in paying 10 crores to become a super specialist. So all these things slowly push us into asking a patient to undergo probably procedures which are very expensive, and I won't hesitate to say procedures which may sometimes be unwanted. That's the second reason why I thought a second opinion would help people more than operating and be one more person operating or one more person offering primary opinion and care. Then there is also somebody who taught me something in life. Before coming to NIMS in 1982, for all those who had sciatica, the so-called kalu-jalu or leg pain, we used to manage them conservatively in Guntur because there was nobody who was doing laminectomies and disc surgeries in Guntur. When I came to NIMS, that was the one operation we focused upon because a lot of glamour was attached to it. So we learned how to, I learned how to operate, and then the next thing I did was, at the time there was private practice. I used to go to Ongole and get a few patients from there. But every single person who had sciatica for more than 6 or 7 weeks, I used to bring them over to Hyderabad and operate on them.